Having surpassed 1,000 completed anime, it's time to review my old favorites and find out what holds up. I'm Sacrabolic, your envoy of hope, and this is Anime Favorite Search. Wanna Be the Strongest in the World is set in one of those fictional universes where professional wrestling is real and would totally kill so many people, starring a girl named Sakura who is the top idol in her 108-member idol group and is considered to be possibly one of the greatest idols in the world. Due to a promotional event, the main members of her idol group end up participating in a sort of mock wrestling event, but because they get mocked by an actual professional wrestler, Sakura ends up challenging her to an actual wrestling match, which then turns out to be whoever loses gets their hair cut. Needless to say, an idol does not beat an actual professional wrestler in a world where professional wrestling is completely real, so she gets her shit completely rocked, and so out of pure spite, she vows to quit being an idol and instead become a professional wrestler until she can prove that, first off, idols are tough, and two, that she can beat the shit out of this other professional wrestler. At about midway through the show, she actually succeeds and then chooses to quit being an idol entirely because she just loves professional wrestling so much. A big thing about Wanna Be the World's Strongest, especially in the beginning, is that Sakura really sucks at wrestling. They say she has a lot of potential and she puts in a lot of hard work, but she goes through this slow degradation process where she tries less and less every match until she gets stuck in this impossible rut. Like, I think she loses 75 matches in a row, which, doesn't make any sense now that I think about it, because I think she was only a professional wrestler for a bit over a year, and even if unless she's having a match every single night, I have absolutely no idea how she lost 75 matches. Like, normally you would assume she'd have a match every week, so that is an insane amount of matches she's lost, actually, now that I think about it. We will put that to the side. Anyway, so she goes through this, intense struggle, and she gets these, pep talks from people, and is sort of taken under the wing by the top wrestler in her organization, because in this universe, there are different wrestling organizations, and sometimes they compete with each other. And, the champion of her own organization also used to be an idol, although we don't know to what degree, and probably not as big as Sakura herself was, and has gone on to become the champion wrestler, takes her under her wing, seeing a lot of herself in that, and due to her tutelage, Sakura manages to actually become a halfway competent wrestler. But for the first 3 episodes, it is just Sakura getting her shit pushed in. She just loses constantly. And I've seen a lot of people say that that's really frustrating, but I think Sakura losing at the beginning to eventually literally drag herself to victory honestly makes the whole ride worth it, because at the end, you yourselves are starting to feel a little bit of frustration for all of Sakura's losses. So when she manages to win, it's sort of both a sigh of relief and also something you end up finding yourself genuinely rooting for her to do. And I love that the integration of her finishing move is called the Sakura Special, which frankly I think is a terrible name. I think it should be called the Ice Cream Flip, because she was taught by a former idol turned wrestler. She became a former idol turned wrestler, and her signature move, the Sakura Special, integrates her special move that she used to do on stage, her special dance move that she learned from being an idol, which was called the Ice Cream Flip, which is why it should still be called the Ice Cream Flip. But I don't get to name fictional wrestling moves, do I? Which is this sick-ass backflip where she backflips and then she kicks you in the chin twice, which I am going to again say it would probably kill someone. If this happened to you, you would probably not survive it. And you know what? That's fine. Anyway, she ends up being you know what, I like professional wrestling, and she ends up competing against the world champion, who demolishes her, because the show is pretty realistic about what she can and cannot do. And it is pushed forward that, she is a competent wrestler, she is an ever-expandingly talented wrestler. They even hint towards the end, it's she's going to start moving towards the world stage and start competing on an international level. But despite the title of Wanna Be the Strongest in the World, which is a declaration she made makes upon finally defeating the woman that caused her to become a wrestler in the first place. She never does it during the course of the show, which personally find disappointing because I would have definitely enjoyed a second season of this show. But it also brings us into a situation where she ends up with like an apprentice of her own who's like got way bigger starting base than she ever had and develops a conflict with her own former Idol partner. Most specifically, her former Idol rival turned wrestling rival. And I have seen, I don't like to address other reviews, but I think it is important to note that I've seen people complain about, like, well, why doesn't she just be an Idol singer and a wrestler? And the thing is, Sakura giving up being an Idol singer to become a professional wrestler wasn't a major central conflict of the show. And I think it was led into really well with the conflict that her apprentice has, because her apprentice is the world champion martial artist. And so it shows her a bit of regret for leaving behind her martial arts, which also starts to bring back Sakura's regret of leaving back being an Idol singer. And so it's led into this arc very well. And the main reason it's like, well, she doesn't think about doing both is because it wasn't something that was actively engaging with her at the time. She wasn't actively feeling the regrets until it came up from the lens of her apprentice feeling those same regrets. So she kind of adopted her apprentice's regret. If I were to say one thing that I actually don't like about this show, it is probably the overuse of submission holds. A lot of this show is dedicated to Sakura or other girls just getting like put into like submission holds, and then they just start screaming, and sometimes they'll be like, ow, my legs, oh, you're hurting my legs. And this goes on a bit too much. It gets tiresome, the submission holds, and just hearing them scream about their submission holds. And also the screaming while in a submission hold dialogue is really fucking dumb. It's like, yeah, bitch, we get it. Your leg's in pain. It probably fucking should be. It's your fucking knee is getting pressed against your forehead. I imagine that hurts like a motherfucker. It goes on for a bit much. It's a bit overused. But I have to say that the characters aren't like the most well-developed, but they're likable enough. I enjoyed the story. I loved rooting for the main character and seeing her progression as she, journeys into becoming a professional wrestler. And I sort of enjoy that there is a happy compromise at the end where she's like, you know what? Maybe I can go back to being an idol. Although, as a quick aside, being a professional wrestler and an idol singer should theoretically be impossible because both of those jobs are so physically and mentally demanding and have such a high chance of injury with the fucking flip she's doing on stage that I cannot possibly imagine that this is sustainable. But what I will say is that this show is still, honestly, to my great surprise, very entertaining. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic, your envoy of hope. Bye-bye.